Hey everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be going over the markets, kind of showing you what I was expecting and essentially what was going through my head when we saw these trades. I personally did not get in a trade this morning. I kind of felt out of tune with the markets. So I accepted that, hey, we don't need to trade every day and that's totally fine, right? Also, I was going to get in a trade because I had missed, quote unquote, missed an opportunity to get in. But I didn't get in this trade because I'm working on FOMO entries. And to me, this felt more of like a FOMO entry. And I'll kind of go over why I thought that and why I didn't end up taking that trade and how that trade played out. So yes, we're working on the FOMO. Yes, we're working on getting into our trades, but I'm just super grateful that we were able to identify, hey, I'm having FOMO right now, and maybe this is totally fine. So let's just get right into it. We'll start on the daily charts here. All right, so essentially, yes, we had a very bullish week yesterday, had that inside candle, or bullish week last week, had that inside candle on Monday, traded higher on Tuesday. But even like look at how the market's been moving. Like that is like a very small candle compared to something like this. And then even today we've had some pretty small candle like movement. Yes, we did take out Tuesday's high this morning, and then we did end up trading lower. But even just seeing these candles compared to something like these candles, or even just like last a couple weeks, like these bigger range candles, like these are the candles I like trading in because one, they are more likely to draw towards that liquidity and they give us easier setups, and essentially it's easy to catch a 5-point setup. Whereas like right now the market's maybe gonna move like 20 points, which is fine. And if we're only aiming for a 5-point take profit, that's totally fine. But it's just something to keep in mind. So of course we traded up into this new day opening gap here, which was great to see. We wanted to see that happen yesterday. And then we traded off of that new day opening gap after taking out the high on Tuesday. So my mind was like, okay, we could potentially go higher. We could draw into this consequent encroachment of this daily wick right here, or we could go lower. We have lots of sell side imbalances to be filled, but again, right now I'm just kind of neutral. I'm not entirely sure where the market's gonna go, and I think that has something to do with it too. Just like kind of not knowing is okay, and I think not knowing helps me to not enter into trades. So let's go down to the 1 hour. Okay, so I marked out there was a 1 hour fair value gap over here, the consequent encroachment of that daily wick, and then the new day opening gap. We also have these highs over here. So that's kind of what I was looking for buy side liquidity. We also have this London session lows down here, this new week opening gap, and then these relatively equal lows. I was looking at that for sell side liquidity. So I kind of had like objectives for buy side and sell side liquidity. And I like doing that because again, I'm neutral in the market. These areas could potentially be reached, and that's totally fine, right? I mean, we're kind of just watching the market, learning, seeing what it wants to do. I did make a trade I didn't trade today, but I'll kind of show you what that is in a minute. Let's drop down to the 15-minute time frame. Okay, so this morning we had this opening range gap. So obviously we had a higher opening range gap. We took out these highs from yesterday. This is Tuesday's high, New York PM session high at 3:45. So we labeled that as New York PM session high. We came up, we traded, took out that high, could just have a few wicks above it, closure above it, and then we had this displacement candle down that happened at 10 a.m., which was crazy to see actually, because we didn't have news at 10. We had news at 9:15, so this is what this run was right here. But seeing the markets at 10 drop like that, I was like, what is going on? So when I saw that, and then we kept going, we filled in this opening range gap, and we traded down just below the closing price of yesterday's regular trading hours. And then we came back up. Anyways, yes, I saw this 15-minute fair value gap at the beginning of the day when this opening range happened. So I wanted to mark it out, see how we would trade around it. We came down to the consequent encroachment of it, traded higher, taking out these highs again, and then traded right through it. So when a 15-minute fair value gap is broken, it could be potentially turned into an inversion fair value gap. So we saw that happen as we traded down through it, and then we came back up into the consequent encroachment of this now inversion fair value gap before going lower. Again, we were trading around this day, like the new day opening gap, and usually when we're trading around gaps, it's kind of a consolidating kind of trading day, I would like to say. But let's go down to the 5-minute really quick. All right, so 5-minute time frame. Again, we had this opening range gap, we had this 15-minute fair value gap, now turned resistance, so an inversion fair value gap. Look at this 5-minute fair value gap right here. So I saw this take place, we had this displacement run, breaking market structure, and then we came back up, had like this nice run, came back up, traded above the 15-minute fair value gap, and then we traded into this 5-minute fair value gap, but we did color outside the lines a little bit. And to be honest with you, I did like this trade. I was like, hey, you know, we have that, we took out the New York PM session high, so we take out buy side liquidity. We traded through a fair value gap, so that is a PD array broken to the downside. We came back up into this PD array, and look at how the bodies are respecting the consequent encroachment of that 15-minute fair value gap. We came back up into this 5-minute fair value gap right here, and this was my sell idea that I was upset that we didn't get in. Only because like the market, how it was moving, I was like, you know, maybe we're not gonna go lower. Again, I think having like that kind of reassurance of where the market's gonna go, it helps with trading, but I came into this with a neutral mindset. However, I did like this trade setup, and then I wanted to see these London session lows taken out. But again, like we haven't even reached that yet. It's just been a slower market. I mean, just because we had that extremely bullish week last week, we were kind of expecting a slower market anyways. So yes, I missed this trade. I didn't get in, even though we did have the confluence with the broken 15-minute fair value gap turned into an inversion fair value gap. And you know, this was trade easily could have hit 5 points right underneath these lows right here. That's 6.5 points, right? We do aim for 10 points. Of course, it did come down. We did hit 10 points right here. We wanted to see these London session lows taken, but of course they didn't. And you know, that's totally fine. But kind of going through that headspace, I was like, oh, you know, I kind of missed a trade here. Now, the easy run had already happened with these lows being taken out. So when we drop down to the 1 minute, I'll kind of show you like, hey, this is where I was gonna get in, but I decided not to because I was having feelings of like FOMO. So let's drop down to the 1 minute. All right, so as you can see, this drop happened. We filled in the opening range gap. We came back up into this 5-minute fair value gap and also this 1 minute fair value gap perfectly. As you can see right there, traded, you know, kind of had like a little bit of a high resistance run. Then we took out the lows from over back there, and we had this 1 minute fair value gap right here. And I was like, you know, it looks promising. Like we've had our displacement run, we've had our break of market structure, and we haven't hit the sell side liquidity that I'm looking for. So this could potentially be a good trade setup. Of course, our stops are well protected from this high right here at our 5-point stop loss. But now our liquidity run is only 8.75 points. Of course, it could go lower because we do have those higher time frame objectives. So it could go lower than 5 points. Now, yes, I didn't get in this trade because I felt like it was more of a FOMO trade. You know, I was like, you know, this just doesn't, I just feel like I missed the move and I don't want to just get into trade just to get into trade. I had all these feelings, you know, like we weren't moving how I wanted to move this today. We haven't had a lot of big runs today, so I was like, I'm just not gonna get in this trade. And that's totally fine. I was just like, I'm just gonna watch, see how the price market or price action works, if it's gonna go to those levels, if it's not gonna go to those levels. And as we can see, eventually, after some consolidation, we did hit 5 points. We came back up, took out these relative equal highs. The body's still closing inside of this 1 minute fair value gap. And then we dropped lower. But look, it stopped right here. It didn't even get to our London session lows. And now the market, we could potentially see it drop down into these London session lows. But the fact that it's not there yet is kind of like, what the heck? So we could, I would love to see these London session lows be taken out. But this is why I did not enter into this trade. I was just having like feelings of FOMO. I was like, this just feels more like a FOMO trade to me. Even if it was gonna hit our take profit, I feel like that was just not an ideal entry just because we missed our original entry. I didn't want to rush into another entry. Yes, the thing is we could have gotten into this trade just because we haven't hit our liquidity yet. Yes, it could have been a good trade. Yes, all the things. But even like holding on to this trade for, you know, over an hour now, we would have gotten in, had that consolidation. Yes, we would have finally gotten out at 5 points down here, would have seen the market run up, take out these highs, drop back down, not hit our London session lows, come back up, you know, like it's just like not an ideal market for me to be taking trades in. And I can say that freely, you know, I really love those trades when it's like you get in and then boom, it hits your take profit right away. But this we would have had to hold this trade for over an hour and we're still not even at our liquidity yet, you know? So am I upset that I didn't take this trade? No, I think I'm happy that I was able to see the trade play out and I was able to see like, hey, like this is a good setup. But for me, the market conditions today are just not ideal. And I think that's okay when they're not ideal to just say, you know what, I'm just not gonna take a trade today. And that's what I did. So yes, the original entry at the 5 minute, honestly, like this was probably the best trade I could have taken today because yes, our stops are well protected. Our liquidity, our drawn liquidity is 10 points away. We have confluence with the 15-minute inversion fair value gap. We have a break in market structure here. We took out sell side liquidity. I mean, this for me is kind of like my classic setup. I'll draw it out for you. Let's see if I can draw. So essentially we've been having kind of an up move, take out that buy side liquidity, the higher time frame liquidity here. We dropped lower, we broke market structure here. We came back up into a fair value gap and then we traded lower. So this is kind of like what my sell looks like in very basic terms. Trading higher, take out that liquidity, the higher time frame liquidity, or we trade into a higher time frame imbalance like a 1 hour fair value gap or a 15-minute fair value gap before we trade lower. We have a break of market structure. trade higher into lower time frame fair value gap, like a 5-minute fair value gap, 1-minute fair value gap, even sometimes a 15-minute fair value gap. And then we trade lower into sell side liquidity or a higher time frame imbalance. So yes, as we can see, the market still did what we were expecting. However, because of like the choppiness, it wasn't an ideal market. It would have been more of a high resistant liquidity run, and that's totally fine. You know, that usually works out sometimes. But for me today, I was just like, I'm just gonna sit this one out. I'm gonna watch price action. I'm gonna see how it happens. We'll see, we'll learn. You know, we're still learning. And yeah, tomorrow's a new day. We made it to tomorrow. We can trade tomorrow. We could trade Friday. We have news tomorrow and news Friday. So a little bit more volatility in the markets. And considering today, yesterday, and Monday, we didn't have much movement. I would like to see the market have more movement tomorrow and Friday just due to news. So yeah, hopefully we can see something tomorrow or Friday, and maybe even, I don't know, maybe even catch a trade. So I hope this video helped. I hope you guys got some insights. And yeah, I guess I will see you all tomorrow. Maybe we'll do a little bit more of an in-depth drawing video so I can kind of explain it a little bit more. And yeah, like look at this right now. The markets are gonna go to that London session low. Again, this would have been a good trade, but sometimes it's okay to miss trades, and I'm okay. You know, it's okay. It took a while, that's for sure. Like, took us what, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 50. It almost took us 2 hours to finally hit our objective of that London session low. And again, I like being in those quick markets, that easy liquidity run, that easy, like, let's just get it kind of trades. So sometimes the markets just take a little bit longer to get going, that's for sure. And especially after such a bullish week, right? All right, I'll end the video here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments if you liked it, if you learned something. And I will see you all tomorrow. Bye for now.